So now we're going to look at verbals. And verbals, if you look at their name, has the word verb in it. So verbals are going to be this special class of words that are like verbs, but they're being used in other ways. So a verbal is a verb form used as another part of speech. So we have verb, right? It's a verb form. It looks like a verb. It has verbness, but it's being used as another part of speech. And so there are going to be three of these. We have gerunds, participles, and infinitives. So you've just seen how a noun job can be done by a whole clause, right? We saw noun clauses, we saw adverb clauses, adjective clauses. You have also seen how a whole clause could serve as an adjective or adverb. Our clever language has another device to expand and pep up nouns, adjectives, and adverbs. It is the verbal. So these verbals, we're going to see, are going to perform different roles. So we have gerunds, and they're always nouns. So that's going to be easy, okay? Gerunds are going to be fairly easy because, okay, this verbal, which we'll see in a minute what a verbal is always going to be a noun. When it's used as a noun, it's going to be a gerund. Then we have participles. Participles are always adjectives. Now that may mean, you may think, okay, well, that means they're easy too, but they're a little more difficult, but that's fine. We'll break them down. Then we have infinitives, which can be nouns, adjectives, or adverbs. Infinitives are pretty easy to identify. Okay, we'll cover them. It's like to be, to run, to swim. That's an infinitive. Gerunds and participles, they're going to share some, they're going to look similar. All right, but we'll break them down piece by piece. So the easiest one is the gerund, and that's what we're going to start out with here. So gerunds are the easiest verbal to learn. Oops. Gerunds are the easiest verbal to learn, so we will start with them. With gerunds, you can always count on two things. A gerund always ends in ing. Every gerund, every single one ends in ing. A gerund is always a noun. So how do you identify a gerund? Look for a word that ends in ing and is acting as a noun. Let's take an example. If you were asked to diagram swimming is fun, you would no doubt say to yourself, swimming is the subject. Of course it is. So you would diagram it. We put swimming as our subject. Is the intransitive linking verb. Is going to be an intransitive linking verb. Fun is a predicate noun. Now, if we look at the word swimming, well, it has certain characteristics. To swim, swimming, he swam, she swam, that's an action, right? But at the same time, if we look at swimming, like what do we notice about, if I had the verb he swam, the past tense, she is swimming, that's present tense. She is swimming. Or he will swim. Those are all instances of the verb swim, but they all have time, right? It's occurring in the present, the past, or the future. Swimming is fun. Swimming does not have time. There's no time attached to it. Yet it still has action, verbness. So the action of swimming is the verbness of it. Yet it's a noun. Nouns they don't have time. As in if I say cat, dog, hat, tree, there's no time related to that. So we're going to see that these verbals are often a combination of certain qualities, characteristics, or properties of verbs and then other parts of speech. So back to this example, swimming is fun. Swimming here is our subject. You're ready to examine the verbness of swimming. It has been made out of the verb to swim, came from the infinitive. That's an infinitive. To swim is an infinitive. So the verb came from this, to swim. sorry, the gerund came from the infinitive to swim. It is the name, as all nouns are names, of an action. For to swim is a verb of action. So swimming is a name. Names are nouns. And it's a name of an action. So it has action, it has verbness, yet it's a noun. When the ing form of a verb is used as a noun, it is a gerund. Okay, so look for ing and if it's a noun or not. You can immediately name many activities as gerunds: reading, dancing, running, sleeping, even being. So reading is great fun. Dancing is entertaining. Running is important for your health. Sleeping is beneficial for you. Being good is virtuous, right? In all of those instances, I used these gerunds as subjects of a sentence. So if they are something special, if they're kind of a verb, kind of a noun, we actually need to diagram them a little differently. And there'll be reasons for that, as we'll see. So here's how we're going to diagram it. We make a little hangman. And we put the swim portion, right, up here. Then we do a little step, put the ing. So that the swim is the verbness of it. The ing is the nounness of it. Think of it like that. And so this is how we're going to diagram every single gerund. Before we examine all the verb things a gerund can do, let's observe the noun things. I suppose the reason for the broken horizontal line is to show that the gerund is part noun, part verb. Both nouns and verbs sit on horizontal lines. We have already said that in Swimming is Fun, the gerund swimming was acting as subject. That's one noun job gerunds can do. Okay, so how are gerunds nouns, right? What jobs do they take, right? They are nouns, so they're going to take noun jobs. Just like noun clauses, what are all the noun jobs we know? Subject, direct object, indirect object, predicate noun, object of a preposition, right? So retained object. All of these are noun jobs. You can put a gerund in any one of those places. Let's look at some examples. My hobby is swimming. My hobby, that's our subject, is swimming. Swimming is a what? Predicate noun. So there we have a gerund, which is a predicate noun. It's a noun job, so that's okay. I like swimming. What type of verb is like? Do our verb test. State the action. Like. The doer to. I. Who or what it was done to? Swimming. So swimming is a direct object. It's a noun job. I am interested in swimming. Okay, we have a preposition, in. And swimming is the object of the preposition. So how do we diagram it? If I just show you just the preposition aspect, put the in there, line here where the object will normally go, you make your hangman. But then you also got to do your little step ladder, just like that, right? And you'd put in here, and you do swim in, just like that, but neater. I give swimming all my time. All right. Now, a lot of us get mixed up with these, but take it one step at a time. I is our subject. Give is the verb. Who or what was giving done to? What are you giving? All my time. Okay. But what are you giving all of your time? Swimming. Think about this. I gave John all my time. What is the role of John there grammatically? What is the role of swimming here? It's going to be a indirect object. It's receiving time. It is the thing receiving the direct object, so it's an indirect object. So you'll just diagram these like you normally would, right? If number 4, if I was gonna diagram it, I don't have in there. I just have the X. or the indirect object. And that's it. Very simple. You know how to do nouns. Because you know how to do nouns, you'll know how to diagram gerunds. You just have to change it a little bit with this little hangman and stepping bit. Okay, so that's the nounness of gerunds. Now, if we see, you should have been able to find a gerund, predicate noun, direct object, object of a preposition, and indirect object. Check the answer to see if you diagram them correctly. You should have, right? Because this is the same stuff you've been doing. You're just putting a new type of word in the noun place. So much for the nounness of gerunds. That's how they're nouns, as in they are in the sentence, they're going to be nouns. How much verbness do they still have? What can verbs do? Various verbs can take predicate adjectives or predicate nouns. These are called or direct objects. All three of these, the predicate adjective, predicate noun, direct object, those are called in grammar complements. Complements. So all three of those are called complements. They complement the verb. Verbs are also modified by adverbs. Verbs have subjects. So now the question is, if gerunds have verbness, do they have all three of these? Yeah, they do, in a sense. Let's look. Could gerunds have complements? Swimming the English Channel is dangerous. Being king is a responsibility. Staying happy was a challenge. So look, swimming the English Channel. I want you to take, now look, is dangerous. Okay, swimming here is a subject. It's a subject. Is our verb. It's our main verb. Dangerous, predicate noun. I'll do it in a different color red. Predicate noun. So the English Channel, what job does it have grammatically? Here, you need to treat swimming like it's a verb. Okay, if swimming were a verb, what kind of verb would it be? Right? Well, here, swimming the English Channel. What did you swim? The English Channel. So the English Channel, it's receiving the action of the gerund. So it's a direct object. And that's how we're going to diagram it. Here's the English Channel here. It's a direct object for the subject, swimming. Is our verb. Dangerous, a predicate noun. So you see it's the exact same thing, except now we're treating this gerund here in the diagram, at least, like a separate verb. Okay, so you always have to look at it and say, okay, what type of verb would this gerund be if it was a verb? Because it has verbness. Look at the second one. Being king is a responsibility. Being king is a responsibility. Where's the subject? Being. Being king, okay, where's our verb? Main verb is a responsibility. Responsibility comes after is, right? So the predicate noun. All right, being king. If being were a verb, what kind of verb would it be? It's a being verb, to be. It's in transitive linking. So then king, what kind of word is it? It's a noun, right? So we have a predicate noun. And look, this is how we're going to diagram it. Being, it's our subject. That's why it's here on the line in the subject place. And then king. King is the predicate noun for being. Being king is our verb, main verb, a responsibility, predicate noun. So I'm just going to make this color, this color. Okay, same principles that you know before. You just have to look at these words a little different because they're gerunds. Okay, staying happy was a challenge. Staying is our subject. Was is the intransitive linking verb. And then a challenge is our predicate noun. Well, staying happy, what kind of word is happy? Happy is an adjective. So we have happy as a predicate adjective. We have our subject, staying, right? And we put our verb was a challenge. Just like that. So you see, yeah, it has gerunds take complements. They have direct objects, predicate noun, predicate adjective. Those are the complements. They can take all three. So pay attention when you're diagramming and look for what the gerund is doing. And don't get caught. Okay. So if we look here, okay. Even though the gerunds above, swimming, being, and staying, had enough nounness to be subjects, they proved that gerunds have enough verbness to take the verb complements, direct object, predicate noun, and predicate adjective. So that's one of the roles that they have, like verbs, that act like verbs. Well, how about adverbial modifiers of gerunds? Verbs are modified by adverbs. Can we modify gerunds by adverbs? Why not? Could you say swimming against the current, prepositional phrase, acting as an adverb? Actually being king, actually we know is an adverb. Staying happy under these conditions is a prepositional phrase acting as an adverb. So we have against the current, actually under these conditions. So look, they're modifying. So if they were subjects of a sentence, right, you would diagram them in the subject place, but then also you have to put these prepositional phrases or that acting as adverbs or adverbs, and you put them, if you look under the verb part, so above the first step, not the noun part. All right. The expressions against the current, actually, and under these conditions tell how the verb was carried out. So gerunds can have adverbial modifiers. And you use gerunds all the time in your everyday speech. Finally, can gerunds have subjects? So grammatically, no, they can't, right? They're not going to have subjects, but you can say in a sense what the subject is. She says, well, sort of. What is a subject? The doer or beer of the verb. Take a look at this. Singing won a prize. We want to know who's singing. Who did the singing? Nellie's singing won a prize. So we know, if we're looking at this, that Nellie's possessive noun with possessive S is an adjective. It's still an adjective. We're going to diagram it just like an adjective, but it's like the subject of the gerund. And so here's the rule. The subject of a gerund is in the possessive case, as in it's an adjective. It's an adjective for the gerund. That means we don't say Nellie singing won a prize. We make Nellie possessive, Nellie's. Notice these examples of subjects of gerunds. I like Mike's dancing. His going will not make us happy. I am curious about your growing vegetables and water. All of these are just adjectives, but they tell us in terms of the meaning, they tell us who the subject is, okay? But don't try to diagram it as a subject, diagram it as an adjective. And that's why she puts it in quotations. We speak of the subject of a verb in quote because, after all, a gerund is a noun, not a real verb. Remember the definition of a clause. A group of words with a subject and a verb. If Nellie's singing were a real subject and verb, we would call it a gerund clause, right? If it was a subject. But it's not. It's just an adjective. But since Nellie's really is telling who's about a noun, we say it is a gerund phrase. Okay, so the adjectives of a gerund and the gerund itself are a gerund phrase, right? So Mike's dancing, his going, your growing. These are called gerund phrases. Remember, we mentioned earlier that other than prepositional phrases, there are other types of phrases, noun phrases. Now we have gerund phrases. So she's going to give us a definition. A verbal, okay, so that means gerund, participle, and infinitive. And the words that go with it make a phrase, not a clause, right? Because they don't have subject and verb. They just have, subject if they're a gerund. Of course, a verbal can occur without any other words, as in our original sentence, swimming is fun. So diagram 5.2, it's using all gerunds and gerund phrases. So they're all going to be nouns. All the gerunds are going to be nouns and they end in ing. So if I look, in the summer, Margie enjoys canning tomatoes. What does she enjoy? That's a direct object. That's a noun job. Canning. This is a gerund. Ing in a noun place. Gerund. Ron's partying has. So partying is our subject. So this is a gerund. Resulted in his mother's worrying. In his mother's worrying. So in, preposition. So worrying is the object of the preposition. Therefore, it's a gerund. Okay, and so on and so forth. Then the gerund phrase would be his mother's, right? Those are adjectives for worrying. Ron's would be the adjective for partying, and so on and so forth. Okay, so diagram these. It's pretty simple. Gerunds are not that hard. Okay, so the answers should straighten out any problems. Before we leave these easy gerunds, though, we should remember that not everything ending in ing is a gerund. Some plain old verbs end in ing. To make this point clearer, okay, this is where we may get confused, because you may think, wait a minute, are all words that end in ing gerund? No. Words that end in ing and act as nouns are gerunds. If you have a word that ends in ing and it's not a noun, it's not going to be a gerund. So look here in this example. Molly is baking pies. Her hobby is baking pies. So Molly is baking pies. Where's the subject? Molly. Where's the main verb? Is baking. Right? So the baking is a verb. It's not a gerund. Okay? Because we're not saying, and this is important, Molly does not equal baking, right? We're not saying she is baking, that she herself is baking. She's doing the action of baking, but she is not baking herself. Molly is not, baking itself. She's not the action of baking. She is someone doing baking. So here it's a verb. Her hobby is baking pies. Okay, now we have a noun, we have a subject, hobby, a verb, intransitive linking, is baking. Now we have predicate noun, is baking pies. Because we're saying that the hobby equals, what is the hobby? It is baking. That's what it equals, right? Hobby does equal baking. That's the difference. So ask yourself, when you see the ing word, is it a noun? Is it a verb? If it's a noun, it's a gerund. If it's a verb, it's just a normal, could be transitive active, intransitive complete, right? It depends. Okay. So make certain that an ing word is really acting as a noun before you call it a gerund. As we have seen, these ing words can be verbs and gerunds. Also, alas, they can also be something else. All right, so let's go to participles, which is a bit more difficult.